Hi guys, in this devlog I'm covering three main areas: a lives system which introduced a major crash bug which took me ages to fix. I've got the game working as a web build so it can be played directly in the browser, which is something I couldn't do with Monogame. And the last thing I've done is implemented a pickup system for the scoring. So rather than scoring when they'd pass through pipes like in the original Flappy Bird, the player would actually pick up some food that's sort of floating around the kitchen. All right, let's get into it. So what I've been trying to work on over the past couple of hours is getting a kind of a game flow kind of working. So I've put in a heart system, which is what I had in the first game. Now, I haven't learnt about fonts yet, so this looks absolutely awful. But yeah, you can now continue, carry on playing if you've got the lives. So that seems to be working up to a point. So if I just lose another life, and now we've got game over again. I need to change all this. It looks terrible. But now it does start a new game. But the problem is if I lose another knife, if I just drop to the floor, I get crash bug. And it's something to do with the heart system, and I just can't figure it out because I had this working fine in this tutorial project, which was working, and I've done the same thing. So I don't know why it's working. Oh, it's not working. It's, yeah. I'm really glad that I've just chosen something really small as my first Unity project, because there's so much stuff that I just don't know about yet, and these sorts of problems I'm like, what is happening? Why is it not finding my objects in the scene? So yeah, I'm hoping it's not going to take me like 3 hours to fix. I've already been fiddling with it for at least an hour. But yes, one must press on with the bug fixing. This is the life of trying to do game development. All right, I have fixed the bug. It was a tough one to find. So if I just basically die, so I can die now and then die and die 3 times, game's over. But now I can die again and it's fine. So, yeah, what it was me trying to get clever again. So, on my collision, when I have a collision with in the player controller, in like the tutorial project, oh, I haven't got it up actually. Um, Basically, what I've tried to do in this game is use the Unity event system. I don't know anything about the Unity event system. I thought I would just give it a go. I didn't bother learning any tutorials or anything like that. I just thought I'd try it out, and I just asked like ChatGPT a couple of questions about it. I thought, oh yeah, that sounds simple enough, and it was all kind of working fine. What the problem was is when the game is reloaded, I reload the scene. That destroys everything. What I didn't realize I had to do, I didn't have this. I wasn't basically unsubscribing to the events that I'd set up. And so what was happening was this was getting triggered again on an object which no longer existed. So, yeah, so my bad. Lesson learned there. If I'm gonna try something new, at least watch a tutorial or two first before just trying it, because yeah, I've wasted at least 2 hours on all of this, and I probably could have solved all that pain if I'd just spent 20 minutes watching a tutorial or two on events in Unity. So yeah, so now that I have solved that, I think the only thing left really is to actually put in a way to win the game. What am I doing? I'm clicking on the wrong thing. So at the moment, you can now lose, but you can't score anything. So in the normal Flappy Bird, you score points for kind of passing sort of through the pipes. But I don't know if I really want to. Oh, for fuck's sake. It's going to be another game I suck at. I don't know if I really want to do it that way. So I could, because they're all sort of, ooh, they're all kind of irregular. Oh my god. Oh, it's going to be another one of my games that I can't play because I suck so bad. What I might do is have like some, I don't know, bits of like random food floating around the scene, and you've got to try and catch them to score points. Something like that, perhaps. I don't know. Okay, we may have something going. Notice that I am in a web browser. I am not in Unity. I am attempting to make this into a web build, which I should be able to upload to itch. I now have a title screen, so we can play on here, and now I've got some nicer looking fonts. So if I just sort of let myself die, whee, that just looks could be a little bit further up, but yeah, obviously I've still got a load of stuff to do. You still can't score any points, so there's no way to win, but the mechanics are there, the collision is there. And now if I just lose the game, so toast it again and again, game over, and it works. I've made a little tweak with the way that I'm spawning the obstacles on the counter. So what I've done is I've got a kind of a default position. This minus 3.5 is kind of halfway in the middle of the counter. And then I've got an offset range, which is what I'm using to randomize it. So if I just leave it there as 0 at the moment, you'll see there that all of the obstacles will now start to spawn. If you look at the ones on the counter, every single one will start at the exact same height. So this is basically, you know, almost no challenge. There's no variation in the height here. So then what I can do instead is just adjust this to how much of a range I want. So kind of a float of about 1. So this 1, what this value is in world units. Within Unity, so it doesn't work in pixels, it's in world units, so it doesn't matter what size your screen is, it always is the same. So now you can see they're varying by a unit of about 1 in either direction. I'm going to die here. I thought I might. Another thing I think I need to change is when you die, it just carries on playing. So of course, because I couldn't get 3 there, I'm going to die again and then die again. So I think I'm going to change it so that once you lose a life, you just kind of like start over the level again. But yeah, so this has got kind of quite a high variation. So then this would allow me to kind of introduce a little bit of a difficulty. So if I had this at just, you know, 0.5, this would give it a little bit of variation, but not too much. And I could also adjust the base position so it's a little bit lower down, so that it's just that little bit easier to play. So by tweaking these 2 values, which is just this one and this one, that gives me a way to adjust the difficulty. So I might put in, if I can figure out how to do it, I might put in some kind of like options screen, which then allows you to like change the difficulty, maybe turn off the music, that kind of stuff. That's something that I never did in my monogame projects, but I'd like to try and do it in Unity. It should be easier to do. We have bacon. Everything is better with bacon. So what I have done is, if I go over to here, I've reorganized my folders a little bit to make it a bit neater. I've created another set of prefabs, and this time for some food items. So what I thought would be nice and to fit in with the kind of the toast theme was to have food which you would typically have as a topping for toast. So I've just got 3 at the moment, but I've actually found a ton of graphics, like probably 20 different items that I could use. So that kind of opens up some possibilities for some different sort of gameplay features, but I just want to keep it simple for now. So if we just play this, I've just got it really simple for now. I'm just starting things nice and easily. Now what I really need to do, actually, if I just click on the console, whoa. So I'm just spawning them in the middle of the screen. Now have a look at the bacon. So if you notice here, it says strip 1. It doesn't say bacon. So if I click continue, I've changed it so that this resets. It's bacon again. But then this one will be avocado. This one will be egg. Right. So let me show you what's going on there. So what I have got in my code is I've put in a debug log to say exactly what kind of what we're actually hitting. But when I was doing my prefabs for the bacon in particular, if we have a look at that, if I just drag one of those in, I was having issues with the collider. If I just turn this off, and let me just turn on my mouse highlighter. So if I have a look at the colliders here, hang on, what am I clicking on? Right, so if we have a look at the colliders, you see I've got two box colliders in here. Why is it not showing the box colliders? Oh, this is why. So I had to do it because I wanted to use box colliders. I had to kind of put in two child objects which each have their own box collider, and then I was able to rotate that. So because trying to do the shape for the collision for this was actually a little bit tricky, and I didn't want to use, I mean, you can just do like a polygon collider, but the problem with the polygon glider is that it's more computationally expensive, and I'm always going to be looking for efficiency. I want to get into these habits now, even when I'm starting on my early games. So I've done this as two child objects, and that works well. But in the code which is looking for it, so I've tagged these with toppings, it will find strip 1, strip 2. Now the problem I have is I've created a topping manager, and this works so far exactly the same way as the obstacle manager. So it's using a pool, so I'm using the object pooling instead as well. So I should be able to abstract out some of this code in here into kind of a base class for managing like an object pool. I'll worry about that later. But yeah, so what I wanted to do here is this should subscribe to the event which says when I've hit a topping, the topping manager needs to know about it so that it can despawn it, but then it needs to know which object it's collided with. And so the problem was that over here, I had to basically ask it, what is the root object? Because if it's actually colliding with strip 1, but it's not strip 1 which has been spawned in my object pool, it's bacon. If we have a look in the topping manager and have a look at the list, the prefab is bacon. It's not the individual strip. And so I've just had to put in just that little check in there, which is just basically get the root object and pass that in. But this just works. And so that's really neat. And I like the way you can do that. So being able to define these two individual colliders is really nice, but then still handle it as a single object when I need to. That works. Right, I've now got basic scoring system in place. We've got a little panel over on the left, and I've just got it so that every food item that you pick up is just 10 points. So at the moment, the food literally just spawns in the middle of the screen. I haven't introduced any variation yet, but there we go. We've got the basic UI in place for that. Now, what I've also done whilst I was doing that was I have completely refactored the code to use an event-driven system. So what I did before was, for example, when the player lost a life, the game manager had a reference to, say, the UI, and then it would call a method on the UI, which had to be public, which said, say, the lives had changed, update lives. So now I have completely changed that. So we've got things like update lives and update score, which is completely private to the UI. Only the UI has access to it. And instead, the game manager simply raises an event which can be subscribed to. So when the number of lives has changed, it simply fires off an event. I could probably combine these into one actually, because if the lives has changed, it's been toasted. Anyway, so in the UI manager then, if the lives have changed, there we go. We just update the number of hearts. If the score has changed, we update the score text. If the player's been toasted, then what we do is we display the panel that says toasted, and we have the button on there. And then when the player clicks the button, now it's the UI's turn to actually fire an event. So now we fire an event to say, right, now we're going to be continuing to play. And then the other classes can do something with that. So for example, my obstacle manager and the topping manager, they can be listening for that. And they just reset themselves so that the obstacles disappear from the screen and start over. So this is so much better because it means that my game manager doesn't need to have references to all of these other managers. It means that every single class is completely decoupled from everything else. It means that all of their methods are private. It means that I don't have all of that clutter in my inspector in Unity. What I did have on the game manager was it literally had obstacle manager, topping manager, Toasty for the player, UI. It doesn't need any of that anymore. And what's great about this system is that it means that if I wanted to later on add something new, so for example, right now I have no sound. I don't even know how to play sound in Unity. I haven't learned that yet. When I figure that out, once I've watched some tutorials on that, I'm going to want to build some kind of sound system. But then instead of having to tell it to play sounds at certain times. So for example, in my monogame projects, I literally had calls to like some sound effect dot play littered throughout my code everywhere. So I was constantly having to update everything anytime I wanted to add a sound effect. With this event system, it means that the audio system will be able to subscribe to those events, will be able to subscribe to when the players hit an obstacle, for example, and then go, oh, or whatever, right? So it's just a nicer, cleaner coding practice. It decouples everything and it just makes the code base easier to extend going forwards. You could say it's kind of overkill for such a small project, but on the other hand, it isn't really, because it's literally just like 2 lines of code. You have 1 line of code to raise an event and you have another line of code to respond to it, and that's it. So it's very, very simple to implement, and yet it just makes the code base a lot easier to extend and maintain. And this is the kind of thing that's really important to me. So the next stage is going to be to vary up the food so it's not all just appearing on the same sort of vertical line. That is it for this particular devlog. So if you want to try the game out and play it, you can come over to this page here, which is on itch. I will put a link to it in the description. You can literally just play the game directly in the browser there. Bear in mind that my videos are a little bit behind, so you might notice that the artwork here, the screenshots are looking different. That's what I'll be covering in the next devlog. All right, thanks very much for watching, guys.